You send an email to your boss and do not hear back for 2 hours. By the time you do, you have already imagined being fired, losing your income, and your life falling apart. Or you feel a strange ache in your side, and within minutes you are Googling symptoms that confirm the worst. Or a friend does not respond to a message, and your brain has already concluded that the relationship is damaged beyond repair. If any of that sounds familiar, you are not broken, and you are not alone. What you are experiencing is catastrophizing, a specific cognitive pattern that psychologists have studied extensively and that affects a significant portion of the population. Understanding what it is, where it comes from, what traits make certain people more prone to it, and what actually helps are the 4 things this video covers. Catastrophizing is defined in clinical psychology as a cognitive distortion where the mind jumps to the worst possible conclusion with limited information and little objective basis for that conclusion. The key word is distortion. It is not simply worrying or being realistic about risks. It is the brain exaggerating the likelihood and severity of negative outcomes in a way that is inconsistent with the actual evidence available. You are not assessing risk accurately. You are amplifying it. The evolutionary basis for why this happens is worth understanding because it makes the experience feel less like a personal flaw. Human brains evolved in environments where the cost of underestimating a threat was potentially fatal. A rustle in the grass that turned out to be nothing was far less costly than a rustle that turned out to be a predator that you dismissed. Over millennia, brains that defaulted to assuming the worst in ambiguous situations were more likely to survive and pass their genes forward. Catastrophizing is, in a sense, an evolutionary legacy. The problem is that this threat detection system is poorly calibrated for modern stressors, where most ambiguous situations are not actually dangerous. Here are the 6 traits that psychologists say make certain people more prone to catastrophizing. The first is anxiety. An anxious brain copes with uncertainty by trying to plan for every possible outcome, including the worst ones. The logic is that if you have already mentally prepared for the catastrophe, it will hurt less if it happens. But the act of rehearsing the catastrophe repeatedly produces anxiety in the present, not protection from future pain. Someone who is better able to tolerate uncertainty can sit with the ambiguity of a situation without the brain pulling them toward the worst-case scenario repeatedly. Someone with high anxiety cannot, and the catastrophizing becomes a maladaptive coping mechanism masquerading as preparation. The second is avoidance. Avoidance is subtle because it often comes with a convincing rationalization. If someone catastrophizes about a social event, believing they will be ignored or disliked, they may cancel citing a headache or other convenient physical complaint. The avoidance reduces immediate anxiety, which reinforces the behavior. The brain learns that avoidance works as a short-term anxiety reduction strategy, which makes catastrophizing more likely in future similar situations because the cycle has been rewarded. Clinicians see this pattern constantly. The rationalization is almost always present, making the avoidance look reasonable from the outside while the underlying fear goes unaddressed. The third is pessimism. People who habitually view situations through a negative lens have a lower baseline expectation for positive outcomes. When they consider possible futures, negative outcomes feel more probable to them, regardless of the actual base rates. If they have also experienced genuinely negative life events, particularly traumatic ones, those experiences can recalibrate their expectations in a lasting way. Someone who lost a family member to cancer may interpret any medical symptom as likely to be cancer, not because the probability supports this conclusion, but because the emotional weight of the prior experience has distorted how future risks are processed. The fourth is reassurance seeking. When people who catastrophize surround themselves with others who respond to their worst-case thinking by validating it rather than challenging it, the catastrophizing is reinforced. A friend who says, "Yes, that does sound terrible, you should definitely be worried," provides what psychologists call co-signing of the distorted thought pattern. In peer groups or romantic relationships where catastrophizing is mutually reinforced, the thinking becomes entrenched because no one in the immediate environment is offering a reality check. The echo chamber makes the catastrophic thoughts feel like consensus rather than distortion. The fifth is perfectionism. Perfectionists operate with a cognitive framework where anything less than the ideal outcome is experienced as failure. When that framework encounters uncertainty or imperfection, the brain does not just register that things did not go perfectly. It jumps to the conclusion that the imperfection is catastrophic, irreversible, and defining. A perfectionist who stumbles in a job interview does not think they may not get that particular job. They think they have revealed a fundamental inadequacy that will follow them indefinitely. The rigidity of the perfectionist's standards creates a very short path from anything less than perfect to everything is ruined. The sixth is high rumination. Rumination is the tendency to engage in repetitive circular thinking about problems or concerns. Someone who ruminates extensively about a worst-case scenario spends significant cognitive time inside that scenario, which makes it feel more real and more probable over time. Worrying about getting fired does not feel identical to imagining being fired in vivid detail repeatedly. The latter creates a familiarity with the catastrophic outcome that the brain can mistake for evidence that the outcome is likely. Rumination and catastrophizing feed each other in a loop that is difficult to interrupt without deliberate intervention. On how to actually stop it, psychologists offer two primary approaches that have solid evidence behind them. The first is Socratic questioning. Instead of trying to suppress or argue directly against the catastrophic thought, you challenge it with evidence. What evidence do I actually have that this outcome is likely? What evidence contradicts it? If you are catastrophizing about a medical symptom, looking up the actual statistical probability of the frightening outcome often resets the brain's threat assessment more effectively than trying to simply tell yourself it is fine. The brain responds to facts and evidence when it is guided toward them. A realistic middle ground between worst-case and best-case scenarios is almost always where the actual probability lies, and Socratic questioning moves thinking toward that middle ground. The second is acceptance rather than suppression. Attempting to forcefully block catastrophic thoughts or aggressively challenge every one of them often produces more distress, not less. A more effective approach is to observe the thought without identifying with it. Thoughts are not facts. They are mental events that arise, persist briefly, and pass. Treating a catastrophic thought like a leaf on a stream, something you can notice floating by without grabbing onto it, reduces the power it has over your emotional state. The thought does not need to be defeated. It just needs to be allowed to pass. If catastrophizing is significantly affecting your quality of life, relationships, or ability to function, working with a licensed psychologist or therapist who uses cognitive behavioral approaches is the most evidence-supported path to meaningful improvement. These patterns are learned, and learned patterns can be unlearned with the right support. New videos every day covering the mental and physical health decisions that actually matter. Subscribe and stay with us. One final point worth adding before closing. Catastrophizing is not the same thing as being cautious or thoughtful about genuine risks. Recognizing that a situation carries real danger and taking appropriate precautions is adaptive. Catastrophizing is what happens when the threat detection system fires in situations where the actual risk does not warrant the response, and when the resulting distress significantly outweighs any protective benefit. Knowing the difference, being able to say, is this genuine risk assessment, or is this my brain amplifying uncertainty into catastrophe, is the core skill that separates catastrophizing from realistic concern. Building that awareness takes practice and sometimes professional support. The 6 traits in this video are the entry points: anxiety, avoidance, pessimism, reassurance-seeking, perfectionism, and rumination. Each one has a corresponding liver. Identifying which one is most active in your own thinking is genuinely half the work.